Coming up with a gift you can give from your own kitchen for the holidays is a wonderful way to approach gift giving. But sometimes we get tired of cookies and candy and those traditional types of things. Something you may want to look at that also comes from your gardening efforts would be candied fruit. Now, traditional candied fruit requires a 4-day process where you eventually replace most of the water with sugar so that the drying time at the end is fairly short. But you also end up with something that is very high in sugar as a fruit to give, so you end up basically giving candy. What we're going to do today is look at blanching fruit in sugar syrup so that you shorten the process of preparation from several days down to 1 or 2 days, depending on the drying process time that it takes at the end. But you also end up with something that's got a lot less sugar. And what we have here are apples. You could also use several other kinds of fruit that are seasonal at this time of year. Pears, pineapple. You could use frozen cherries if you chose to. You could also use some canned items. Canned pineapple would work very well. If you're going to use that, you might even want to start with the heavy syrup variety rather than that packed in its own juice, because you're going to be adding sugar to it anyway, so that might be something you want to choose to do. Now, basically what we do is prepare the fruit, we peel it, core it, cut it into somewhere between 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick slices. If you're going to be not working very quickly, you want to have that soaking in salt water or some kind of acidic water so that it doesn't brown very quickly. Work in fairly small batches, however, so that you don't have the problem with the browning. The next step would be to make the syrup. Now, we have simply got 1 cup of white sugar, a cup of corn syrup, and we're going to add these to a large pan because we want it to come to a boil. And we still want to have room to add the fruit to it. And then we have 2 cups of water. Now, as I said, we're going to bring this to a boil over fairly high heat. And when we get it to a boil, we will simmer it with the fruit in it for 10 minutes. Okay, now I added the fruit a little bit earlier than I needed to. We should bring that to a boil first, however. You hopefully will make the proper step when you get to your own kitchen. Now then, we'll let that simmer for about 10 minutes, then we'll remove it from the heat and let it soak in the sugar syrup for 30 minutes. That will allow some of the replacement of the sugar in, or the water in the fruit with some of the sugar in the syrup, and will give you that candied appearance that we like. Now at that point, you need to drain that mixture very well. Be real careful of the apples, because once they cook, or the other fruit that you're using, once they cook, they're going to get softer. So allow them to be lifted out of the syrup rather than dump them into a colander to drain. Otherwise, you'll get a lot of broken pieces. Drain them very well in using a colander, and then drain them on paper towels for a while. At that point, you should probably rinse them with a little bit of water and drain them again to make sure that you get as much of the sugar off the outside as possible. Then go ahead and place them on drying trays. Now, if you have a certain time that you're used to using with your dryer, you may need to shorten it a little bit with this, because we do have less water than we normally would start with. Dryers are very handy for this. Some of the dehydrators, for instance, if you can set it at somewhere between 120 to 140 degrees, that will be optimum. Also, they work fairly well in ovens. It will tie your oven up for several hours, however, so don't plan on doing this the same time you're doing your other Christmas baking. I hope you'll find this a useful gift, a more nutritious one, something that can go in some of those Christmas baskets.